Numbers don't lie. Hey viewers, real quick, if family drama is your thing, smash subscribe. Now back to the story. That's what I told myself for 2 years in forensic accounting. Spreadsheets don't flinch. They cough up secrets people bury under fake names and offshore routing numbers. I'd built my whole identity on that cold, clean math: debits on the left, credits on the right, truth in the totals. But at 6 a.m., staring at the positive stick I'd hidden behind tampon boxes 3 weeks earlier, I learned some truths don't fit in columns. 5 months. I was just past 5 months pregnant and no one knew. Not my mom, not my sister, not the partners who signed my time sheets. The father was a guy in a slate blue tie whose last name I'd flushed from my brain the morning I flew home from Chicago. One conference, too much free wine, a hotel elevator that smelled like citrus cleaner and regret. I pulled on my charcoal blazer over an olive dress that had started life loose and was now hanging on for dear life. High waist, stretchy waistband, the kind of lie you pay $70 for at Nordstrom Rack. In the mirror I still looked like Olivia Grant, junior associate, caffeine-powered ghost. People see what they expect. I'd learned to angle my laptop bag just so, to pick the side of the table that blocked the view, to cough when the baby rolled and my stomach rippled like a stone skipped across a pond. My phone buzzed. Varani audit, 9:30 reminder. I'd been digging through Christopher Varani's import records for 3 weeks and every new sheet made my skin crawl. Money slid in from Panama, bounced through the Caymans, landed in a warehouse in New Jersey that supposedly shipped more electronics than Best Buy but had 0 employees on LinkedIn. Legit invoices on top, something rotten underneath. I grabbed my bag, locked the apartment, rode the elevator down with a guy who reeked of menthols. The lobby smelled like burnt toast and cheap lavender cleaner. Outside, early October air slapped my cheeks. I walked the 6 blocks to the glass tower, heels clicking, baby pressing against my bladder, every 3rd block like a timer. 15th floor, corner desk, 2 monitors, rows of numbers glowing like algae. I lowered myself into the chair, slow, careful, the way you handle something cracked but still holding. Morning, Olivia. Robert Hayes appeared, coffee sloshing, forehead already shiny. How's our favorite importer? Finding some velocity mismatches, I said. Shipping manifests don't match the cash velocity, plus regular wires to shell companies with PO boxes in Grand Cayman. His jaw muscle jumped. Varani's a marquee name. Document everything. Run every number twice. And flag me before you finalize anything. He walked off, shoulders up like he expected a sniper. I dove back in. Numbers, patterns, the quiet click of my keyboard. For 3 hours the baby stayed still and I almost forgot she was there. Then my phone rang. Unknown. I picked up. Olivia Grant. Miss Grant, this is James from Mr. Varani's office. He'd like to meet with you this afternoon. 2 o'clock. Conference room B. I said clients usually route through my supervisor. Mr. Varani requested you specifically. He's reviewed your credentials. The line went dead. My stomach hardened. Braxton Hicks, the internet called them, practice contractions that felt like a fist squeezing and letting go. Stress made them worse. This meeting qualified. I opened the drawer, pulled out the folder, ran my thumb across the tabs. Every printout, every pivot table, every flagged transaction. If Christopher Varani wanted to intimidate me, fine, he could try. 1:55. Conference room B smells like lemon polish and overchilled air. I set out my laptop, water pitcher, 3 neat stacks of paper. The door clicks open at exactly 2. The man who walks in is not the grandfatherly thug I imagined from the wire transfers. He's maybe 34, tall, dark hair swept back like he's perpetually walking against wind only he can feel. Charcoal suit, hand-stitched shoulders, shoes that cost more than my rent. 2 guys follow him in necklace, earpieces, the kind of stillness that says they've handled problems messier than audit findings. They plant themselves by the door. Miss Grant. His voice is low, smooth, the kind that makes you wonder if he's amused or about to order your disappearance. I stand, offer my hand. He takes it, grip firm, eyes cataloging my face like he's tagging inventory. Thank you for making time. I understand you have questions about my books. Let's discuss them. His voice was smooth, cultured. The barest lick of an Italian accent curled around the words. Thank you for meeting with me. I stood, blazer hanging loose on purpose, hand already out. Mr. Versani, I should mention, my supervisor usually handles first consults. I'm aware of standard protocol. He eased into the chair like he owned gravity, but I prefer direct communication when the money gets Baroque. Up close he wasn't loud, he was louder, not threatening, just tuned in, laser on paper. When he looked at me, I felt every wall I'd mortared since grad school go transparent. I've reviewed your preliminary findings. He slid a tablet onto the mahogany. You've spotted irregularities in my international wires. Several, I said, laptop open. Reported import volume doesn't match shipping weights. Payments to shell companies don't map to services. Art valuations are 40, sometimes 60% above comparables. You're thorough. It's my job. A half smile tugged at his mouth. maybe amusement, maybe a test, and your conclusion. That legitimate operations sit inside structures built to move money without documentation. Whether it's criminal, I shrugged, that's not my call, I chart the maze, someone else labels the minotaur. Someone like the SEC, the FBI, the IRS. He leaned back, eyes dark enough to swallow light. You're not intimidated. Should I be? Most people are once they realize what they're sniffing. A cramp lanced low, sudden, sharp. I reached for the water glass, let the motion hide the flinch. When I looked up, his gaze had shifted, not suspicion, microscope. You all right? Fine, cramp. I set the glass down soft. Can we continue? He studied me another beat, then nodded. Walk me through your methodology. For an hour we danced through shell companies, bearer shares, round-tripping, double invoicing. Versani missed nothing. He didn't deny the flags, he offered stories. Some sounded sane, some were bait. I didn't bite. Through it all he watched. Noticed when I shifted to take pressure off my spine. Noticed when my pen paused midline. Noticed when I breathed through another cramp. Finally he snapped the tablet cover shut. You're good, Miss Grant. Thank you. How long with the firm? 2 years. Before that, Chicago, forensic accounting doctorate. Chicago, he echoed, something flickered behind his eyes. When did you graduate? 18 months back. Why? Just curious about your pedigree. He stood, buttoned the jacket in one fluid motion. I'll want weekly updates, direct, that acceptable. I'd planned to loop Robert in. Of course Robert had already agreed. Men like Versani don't ask twice. I'll prepare the reports, I said. He offered his hand again. Warm, firm, held it half a second longer than business required. I look forward to working with you, Miss Grant. Something tells me this will be interesting. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut like a safe lock. I stayed in the conference room, heartbeat playing catch-up. Every minute of that hour had felt engineered. The timing, the questions, the prolonged eye contact, calibration. He wanted to know if I could be rattled, rented, or removed. Answer, no, but I'd also stepped knee-deep into something stickier than a routine audit. My phone buzzed, unknown number, next meeting. Thursday, 4 p.m. I'll send location. CV, he'd harvested my cell without asking. Guys like him treat rules as optional scenery. For the next several weeks I'd be alone with him, weekly, hiding 7 months of pregnancy under increasingly stubborn blazers while I mapped what smelled like criminal scaffolding. I headed back to my cubicle. The baby kicked hard just under my ribs, a private reminder that the clock was running louder than any spreadsheet. 7 months pregnant. Single, 2,000 miles from the sister I hadn't called in 3 years, working for a man who might be the exact shape my instincts screamed again. But I'd crawled out of worse muck. I'd built a career on seeing patterns others missed, on keeping my face while the room liquefied. I could manage this, I would manage this, just had to keep the secret 8 more weeks. Then I'd vanish before anyone connected the dots, before Versani's dark eyes noticed the bulge I'd been dressing around, before I had to admit that somewhere between grad school and single motherhood I'd forgotten how to ask for help, even when I was drowning. 3 weeks slipped past faster than I budgeted. 3 Thursday afternoons, each meeting longer, each one peeling back another layer of the man who sat opposite me like a beautiful, lethal clock. He'd arrive at the conference room precisely on time, always impeccably dressed in suits that whispered wealth rather than shouted it. We discussed transaction patterns, shell companies, the intricate web of international transfers that characterized his operations. But increasingly, the conversations drifted beyond pure business. You studied at the University of Chicago, he said during our 4th meeting, leaning back in his chair with an espresso he'd brought from some Italian place I couldn't afford. What made you choose forensic accounting? I kept my eyes on my laptop screen, tracking a series of payments to an art gallery in Milan. I wanted work that mattered. Regular accounting felt too abstract. This way I can actually expose wrongdoing. Interesting choice of words, expose. His tone was neutral, but I felt the weight of it. Does that make me wrongdoing that needs exposing? That depends on what I find in your records. You've already found irregularities. You documented them in your 2nd report. Irregularities aren't necessarily crimes, they're just patterns that require explanation. He took a sip of his espresso, studying me over the rim of the cup. You're diplomatic. Most auditors would have already filed a suspicious activity report. I'm thorough, not diplomatic. I don't make conclusions without complete evidence. A valuable quality. He set down the cup. Tell me about your background. Where did you grow up? The personal question caught me off guard. Small town in Ohio, nothing interesting. Family, a sister. The words came out more clipped than intended. We're not close. That's unfortunate. Family should be important. I looked up from my laptop, meeting his gaze directly. Mr. Vergini, I appreciate that these meetings have become more conversational, but my personal life isn't relevant to your audit. Something flickered in those dark eyes, not offense but something closer to interest. Fair enough, Miss Grant, let's discuss the Milan gallery payments. We spent the next hour dissecting art acquisitions, valued significantly above market rates. Christopher explained each purchase with details that suggested genuine knowledge about Renaissance paintings and contemporary sculpture. Either he was an actual art enthusiast or he'd done extensive homework to create a plausible cover story. I suspected both. After he left, I remained in the conference room, staring at the spreadsheets that told a story of money moving through legitimate channels that occasionally fed into darker tributaries. My supervisor, Robert, had stopped asking detailed questions about the audit's progress, which told me everything I needed to know. The firm didn't want to look too closely at Christopher Versani's operations. That evening, I had my monthly prenatal appointment at a clinic 30 minutes from my apartment. I'd chosen the location specifically for its distance from work, paying cash for services that should have been covered by insurance, but insurance left paper trails, and paper trails meant questions I wasn't ready to answer. Dr. Sarah Whitfield was in her 40s, efficient and kind without being overly curious. She'd accepted my explanation about wanting privacy without pressing for details. 7.5 months, she said, measuring my belly. Baby's measuring right on track. Have you thought about birth plans? Not yet. The truth was I'd thought about little else. Where would I deliver? How would I explain the sudden absence from work? What would I tell people about the father? You should start preparing. These last weeks go quickly. Dr. Whitfield typed notes into her laptop. Any unusual symptoms, contractions, bleeding, excessive swelling. Some Braxton Hicks contractions, especially when I'm stressed. That's normal, but try to manage stress levels when possible. Your blood pressure is slightly elevated today. I nodded, knowing that managing stress was impossible when I was investigating a potential criminal while hiding a pregnancy from everyone I knew. After the appointment, I stopped at a pharmacy 2 towns over to pick up prenatal vitamins. I was standing in the supplement aisle comparing brands when I felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. I turned slowly, scanning the store. A man in a dark jacket stood near the magazine rack, seemingly absorbed in a sports publication. But something about his posture was wrong, too alert, too focused. I paid quickly and left, checking my mirrors constantly during the drive home. The dark sedan that had been 3 cars back when I left the pharmacy was still there when I turned onto my street. By the time I parked, my heart was racing. I sat in my car, watching through the rearview mirror as the sedan drove past without slowing. Maybe I was paranoid, maybe the stress was making me see threats that didn't exist, but forensic accountants were trained to recognize patterns, and this felt like surveillance. The next day, Christopher arrived for our meeting with a companion. The man was large, probably 63. With the build of someone who'd spent years in physical confrontations, he stood by the door while Christopher settled into his usual chair. "This is Marco," Christopher said casually, "my head of security. He'll be joining our meetings from now on." I glanced at Marco, then back to Christopher. Is there a security concern I should know about? General precaution. My business has attracted some unwanted attention lately. From whom? Christopher opened his tablet, pulling up documents. A rival organization. Nothing that affects you directly, but I'm implementing enhanced security protocols across all my operations, including auditors, including everyone associated with my business interests. I wanted to ask more, to understand what kind of rival warranted a bodyguard's presence at financial meetings, but Robert's warnings echoed in my mind. Be careful with this client. We worked through the latest transactions. Marco, a silent presence that made the small conference room feel even smaller. Halfway through, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Black sedan following you for 3 days. Will handle CV. Ice flooded my veins. I looked up. Christopher was watching me with that unnervingly focused gaze. Something wrong? He asked. How long have you been having me followed? He didn't deny it since our second meeting. Marco noticed someone conducting surveillance on you. We investigated. You investigated my life without permission. I investigated a threat to someone working on my account. The surveillance wasn't from my organization. Then who? I demanded. Christopher exchanged a glance with Marco before answering. The O'Sullivan family, they're Irish-American, controls significant territory in this city. We've been in conflict over business interests for several years. What does that have to do with me? They're investigating everyone associated with my operations. Accountants, lawyers, suppliers, they're looking for weaknesses, for information they can leverage. I set down my pen, suddenly aware of how much danger I'd stumbled into. You should have told me this from the beginning. Would you have continued the audit if I had? No. Exactly. He leaned forward slightly. Miss Grant, I understand your concern, but the surveillance has been handled. Marco's team identified the O'Sullivan operatives and made it clear that harassing my accountant was unacceptable. Made it clear how? Through channels they understand. The careful phrasing told me everything. Violence had been implied, possibly delivered, and I was the cause simply by doing my job. I want to transfer this audit to another accountant, I said. Robert has already confirmed you'll complete the engagement. It would be suspicious to change auditors mid-process, though Sullivans would interpret it as evidence that you'd found something incriminating. He was right. Which made the situation worse. I was trapped by the very thoroughness that had made me good at my job. What exactly is your conflict with the O'Sullivan family about? I asked. Christopher was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much truth to share. Territory, they control certain smuggling routes through the port. They wanted me to use my legitimate import business to transport their contraband. I refused. The refusal cost me several warehouses and 3 employees. Cost you how? They were killed, Miss Grant. That's how conflicts are resolved in this particular business. The blunt admission should have sent me running. Instead, I found myself calculating. If Christopher was telling the truth about refusing to participate in smuggling, it suggested he maintained some ethical boundaries. That was more than I'd expected from someone operating partially outside the law. I'll need security, I said finally. If I'm continuing this audit, I need to know I'm protected. Already arranged, Marco has assigned 2 of his team to discreet surveillance. You won't see them, but they'll be close. I don't want armed guards following me everywhere. They're professionals. You'll never know they're there unless you're in danger. I wanted to protest further, but a contraction rippled across my stomach. I reached for my water glass, using the movement to hide the momentary tension. When I looked up, both Christopher and Marco were watching me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Are you sure you're all right? Christopher asked. You've had several moments of discomfort during our meetings. I'm fine, stress-related stomach issues. You should see a doctor. I have, the lie came easily, it's nothing serious. He didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. We finished reviewing the documents and he left with Marco, leaving me alone in the conference room with the weight of new knowledge. I was caught between organized crime factions, investigating a man who admitted to violence while claiming to have ethical lines, and hiding a pregnancy that was becoming harder to conceal with each passing week. That night I stood in my bathroom staring at my reflection. The blazers weren't hiding my stomach as well anymore. Soon, very soon, someone would notice, and when they did, questions would follow. Questions about the father, about why I'd hidden it, about my fitness to continue working. I needed a plan. 8 more weeks until my due date. 8 weeks to finish the Versini audit, collect my final paycheck, and disappear before anyone connected the dots. But as I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the baby move beneath my palm, I wondered if disappearing was even possible anymore. Christopher Versini had eyes everywhere. He'd discovered surveillance I hadn't noticed. He'd sent security without asking permission. What else did he know? What else had he seen that I thought was hidden? The questions followed me to bed, where I lay awake, calculating probabilities and risks, trying to find a path through the increasingly complex maze my life had become. Numbers had always made sense, but people, particularly dangerous people with dark eyes and protective instincts I didn't understand, operated according to different mathematics entirely. The meeting was supposed to end at 6. Christopher had scheduled it for late evening, ostensibly to review quarterly statements away from the distractions of normal business hours. But when I arrived at his corporate offices, a sleek building in the financial district, something felt wrong. The lobby was too quiet. The security guard at the desk looked up sharply when I entered, spoke briefly into his radio, then waved me toward the elevators without the usual visitor badge protocol. Christopher's office occupied the entire top floor. I'd never been here before. Our previous meetings had always taken place at my firm's conference rooms, neutral territory where I felt some measure of control. Being in his space shifted the dynamic in ways I couldn't quite define. The elevator opened directly into a reception area decorated in minimalist modern style. Dark wood, leather seating, abstract art that probably cost more than my annual salary. A woman in her 50s sat at the reception desk, her expression professional but warm. Miss Grant. Mr. Versini is expecting you. Conference room 2 down the hall to your left. I followed her directions, my low heels clicking against polished marble. The hallway stretched long, all glass on the left side, and the city underneath us was switching on, one orange square at a time. Dusk clung to the glass like breath. At the far end, the double doors waited, barely open, just a black slice between them. I put my palm on the cool metal and pushed. Stopped. The conference room swallowed sound. One table, dark wood, 20 chairs, but my eyes went straight to the far wall, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the drama playing out 3 floors below. Parking garage roof, 2 knots of men facing off like rival wolf packs. Christopher stood center window, hands in his pockets, tie reflecting the ceiling lights. Marco beside him, arms folded, jaw tight. Miss Grant. He didn't turn. I'm sorry for the cloak and dagger address. Things turned messy. What's happening down there? Business negotiation losing its manners. He pivoted then, and I caught the rigid set of his shoulders. The O'Sullivan family decided polite warnings are child's play. Below, one guy shoved another. The whole cluster surged. Even through sealed glass I felt the impact, fists, elbows, bodies dropping. We should call the police. Marco barked a laugh, short, ugly. Police can't teleport. Not for this, what do you mean? Christopher stepped away from the glass, motioning me toward the table. Sit, Miss Grant. You need the 5-minute education you never asked for. I'm an accountant, I tick boxes, I'm not part of anything. You became part the instant your brain started connecting my numbers too accurately. He scraped out a chair and sat. Please, easier if you're in a chair. I stayed on my feet a second longer, then slid into the seat, wood cold through my skirt. O'Sullivan Network runs most of the smuggling in this city, he said. Legit import firms are their Trojan horses. Owners move cocaine next to coffee beans or guns beside car parts. 3 years ago they knocked on my door. You refused. I refused. My father built this company on actual freight. When he died, I inherited the goodwill and the garbage. I've been hauling the trash out ever since. I thought of shell companies in Grand Cayman, art purchases that never saw a wall, patterns I'd flagged as leftover from the old man. I'm closing those pipes, he continued, quietly. You don't shout while you're tiptoeing past sleeping regulators. So you're the White Knight. I'm the guy who said no to human cargo. O'Sullivans took that as a declaration of war. If I can make money without them, others might copy me. That threatens their whole mythology. Another crash from outside, a body hit concrete, stayed down. This is insane, someone's hurt. 3 dead in 6 months, Christopher said, voice flat. 2 of mine, 1 of theirs. Territory disputes get biblical. I don't want your world. Neither did the 2 accountants working for companies that said yes. Now those guys shuffle heroin manifests and can't quit because evidence would bury them. They're lifers. Translation: if I'd audited one of those firms, I'd be filthy or fish food by now. He leaned in. Olivia, the papers you compiled, Sullivans want them. They think you've mapped my money veins. They'll subpoena you, squeeze you, or simply bag you. Can't you hand them something, make this stop? Hand them people, you mean? No. Steel under the word, I'd boxed him as polished criminal with good PR. Now the box cracked. Why meet tonight? I asked. They plan to grab you in your office garage. Marco's crew stepped in early. What you're watching is the overtime. Ice spread across my ribs. They were going to kidnap me. I shoved back from the table. Chair legs screamed. I'm calling the police, telling them what? That my audit target tipped me off about a kidnapping that hasn't happened, fought off gangsters, and oh, I don't have a single document that proves a crime. He spread his hands. Exactly. I quit. I'll tell Robert to reassign. I'll transfer. I'll leave the state. Won't make you less valuable. Switching auditors midstream screams you found something. They'll chase you just to find out why you ran. Below, a man crawled, left a red smear. Nobody helped. I looked at Christopher, then at Marco, then at the city glittering like broken glass. My phone stayed in my purse. My exit stayed on the other side of that door. Neither of us moved. So, what am I supposed to do? Christopher stood. He moved around the table, slow, deliberate. I backed up before I could stop myself. He froze, palms open, still 3 feet away. Protection, he said, temporary, just until this mess resolves. How long? My voice cracked. Weeks, months. I don't know. He said Marco's team was the best private security in the city. They could keep me breathing. I wanted to laugh. Accepting protection from the guy I was auditing was about as ethically clean as licking a subway pole. But the alternative was letting the O'Sullivans use me for target practice. They'd already buried people over this territory. I need time to think. Time's the one thing you don't have, he nodded toward the window. Down on the street, the shouting match was breaking up, 2 groups sliding into separate cars. They know we're onto them, they'll accelerate. A cramp knotted under my ribs. I pressed my fist to the spot, tried to breathe through it. "You're in pain." His eyes narrowed. "Fourth time I've seen it." "Stress. Seen a doctor." "Yes, it's managed." Marco filled the doorway. "Boss, we need to move. O'Sullivan's guys are regrouping." Christopher's gaze stayed on me. "Marco drives you home. Team outside your building tonight. Tomorrow we sort the rest." I didn't agree. "You didn't refuse." His dark eyes locked on mine. "Miss Grant, independence is worthless if you're dead or locked in somebody's trunk. Let me keep you breathing while we figure this out." Another cramp harder. I gripped the chair so my knees wouldn't fold. "Fine, just tonight." Marco led me to a private elevator that skipped the lobby. The garage was quiet now, just the echo of our shoes and the glitter of broken glass, maybe blood on the concrete. Black SUV, tinted windows. Marco drove. A stranger rode shotgun. Radio chatter in code I didn't understand. 30 minutes of stop and go. Neither man spoke. When we reached my building, Marco walked me to the door. "Teams across the street," he said. "A tower shifts. Anything weird, call." He pressed a card into my hand. One phone number, nothing else. This is insane. This is survival. He waited until the deadbolt clicked. I stood in the dark, shaking. The apartment smelled like old takeout and abandonment. I'd gone from auditing spreadsheets to being a pawn in a shooting war. I edged to the window, dark sedan, two silhouettes inside, exactly where Marco said they'd be. My phone buzzed. "Christopher, you safe inside?" "Yes, try to rest. Tomorrow we plan." I typed, thumbs trembling. "There's something you should know. I can't be put in danger. Personal reasons." "I can't be compromised." Pause, then, "What kind of reasons? Personal? Anything else you're hiding that affects security?" "Everything. I'm 7.5 months pregnant with a stranger's kid and I've hidden it from the world. If this lands me in a hospital or a precinct, people will find out." I deleted every word. Sent instead, "No, nothing else. Get sleep." Marco, 9 a.m. I stayed at the window a long time after he hung up, watching the guards watch me. I'd spent months folding myself smaller, dressing in loose sweaters, timing bathroom breaks so no one noticed the life kicking under my ribs. I'd almost made myself invisible, but Christopher Versani saw everything. Sooner or later he'd see through this lie too, and when he did, the fragile safety net would either hold or snap me in half. Working from home under surveillance feels like living inside a terrarium. Every time I twitch the curtain, the same black sedan stares back. Protection, sure. Also scrutiny. 9 on the dot, Marco texted. Downstairs, the drive left the city behind, climbing into moneyed hills. Stone walls, iron gates, trees older than the Republic. Marco punched a code, the gate yawned. "One of Mr. Vanny's places," he said, "safer than a cafe." The house crouched low, all glass and concrete, cameras winking like robins on a wire. 2 guards patrolled the drive. Christopher waited at the door, no suit, no tie, just dark jeans and a black sweater. Younger, sharper, like he'd shed the polite skin and left the blade underneath. "Thanks for coming," he said, stepping aside. "I thought neutral territory would be better for this conversation. Somewhere we both feel less constrained by professional boundaries." The interior was warm. Not the sterile show-home warmth I'd expected. Hardwood floors, furniture that looked satin, not staged. We walked through a living room that actually lived, then into his study. Bookshelves from floor to ceiling. A desk the size of my kitchen table, parked under windows that looked out on a garden I couldn't name. A woman appeared, 50-something, soft at the edges, tray in hand, coffee, pastries. She smiled like she already knew my order. "Anna," Christopher said. "She manages the property. Anything you need, ask her." "Thank you." The words came out polite. Inside I was doing math. If I need anything, that means I'm staying. Anna left. Christopher poured, black for him, a splash of cream for me like he'd remembered. "How was your night?" Sleepless. I kept seeing those men in the garage, the way the light caught the lead one's knuckles, the sound Marco's shoulder made when he slammed the guy into the pillar. "Your team stopped it. That's what matters." I wrapped both hands around the cup. Ceramic heat bit my palms. "You said this could drag on for months." "I did. I can't live under guard for months. I've got a job, bills, a cat who already hates change." He settled back. Relaxed spine, razor attention. "Safest play, stay here until the dust settles." "Absolutely not. Let me finish." Lean forward. "This house is a bunker dressed like a farmhouse. Guards, cameras, invisible perimeter. 15 miles outside the city, too far for casual surveillance. You'd have your own suite. Kitchen, door, Wi-Fi, zero reason to see me unless you want to. Anna lives on site. You can keep auditing from the guest cottage." "You're asking me to move into your pocket." "I'm asking you not to die in yours." I opened my mouth, closed it. He was right, which made me hate him more. "I need to think." "Think fast. Every night you go back to that address, the odds shorten." My phone rang. "Robert," I turned away. "Olivia, you missed stand-up." "Crap, I'm off-site. Client meeting, Versian audit." His pause tasted like suspicion. We need to talk, can you be here by 2? I'll be there. I pocketed the phone. Christopher's eyebrows asked the question. Work wants a chat. About the audit. About the audit, about you, about why I keep vanishing. Tell them the truth, numbers are messy, no smoking gun, clients high maintenance, all factual. I met his stare. I'm not burying findings if that's what you're asking. I'm not worried about the findings. I know what's in the accounts. I'm worried what happens when your firm decides I'm more liability than fee. That possibility hadn't even knocked. You think they'd drop you. Smart managers cut risk. If Robert smells gangsters, he'll walk. Then you lose whatever shield my name provides. Your name is what painted the target on me. No, your thoroughness did. If you'd half-assed the audit, the O'Sullivans would have ignored you. But you're good. Good is valuable. Valuable gets hunted. A sudden kick under my ribs, sharp. I pressed my hand to the spot, casual as I could. You're in pain again. I'm fine. You keep saying that, your body disagrees. He stood, opened a cabinet. I can have a discreet ob here in an hour, top of the field. No. Why not? Because any doctor with a stethoscope and half a brain would clock that I'm 7.5 months pregnant, then the whole Jenga tower tumbles. I have my own doctor I'll call. He didn't believe me, he let it ride, at least eat. I picked up a pastry to shut him up. Flaky, cheesy, perfect. I managed 3 bites before my stomach threatened to return them. Stress, nausea, old friend. Tell me about the clean side of your business, I said. If I'm stuck here, I want to know what I'm helping build. He exhaled like I'd just lifted a weight off his chest. Dad started with wine, family vineyards in Tuscany. He shipped cases here, undercut the big distributors, still kept quality high enough that sommeliers fought for allocations. The business grew fast. 1 storefront became 3, then 10, then a warehouse in Newark that smelled like cardboard and olives. We branched into oil, cheese, tables, chairs, paintings of fat grapes. Somewhere in that sprawl, the clean money learned to hide the dirty. My father believed in pragmatism, that's the polite word. When certain organizations offered shelf space and trucks and quiet docks at night, he said yes. No speeches, just a handshake and a look that said, we both know the price. By the time the lawyer handed me the keys, those handshakes were welded to the frame. I'm trying to pry them off. I want to build something that doesn't need a bodyguard at the loading dock, something that lets my accountant sleep without checking the locks twice. He paused. My mother died when I was 15, cancer. One spring she was planting basil, the fall she was gone. Dad buried himself in ledgers after that, made decisions I'm sure he regrets in whatever place you go when the heart gives out. 3 years ago I inherited the company, and every ghost that came with it. His voice cracked on her name. I didn't want to hear it. I'd spent weeks telling myself Christopher Versani was just a target, a line item, a signature on a confession I hadn't written yet, not a guy who still misses his mom. I'm sorry about your mother, I said, thank you. She would have liked you. She liked people who knew how to count and still told the truth. A small laugh. She wouldn't like me keeping an accountant hostage over protection arrangements. You're not a hostage, I said, free to leave any time. He raised an eyebrow. Feels like every exit sign points toward a ditch with my name on it. That's not manipulation, that's Baltimore after dark. He stood, walked to the window. City lights blinked like bad wiring. I didn't invent the Ollivans, Olivia. They did when they decided my suppliers make easy prey. I'm offering the only umbrella that hasn't already got holes. He used my first name, not Miss Grant. The air shifted, warm, dangerous. I kept my face still, the way you do when you're holding a straight flush and a secret. I need to be back in the city for Robert, I said. Marco can drive you, but think about the guest house. The walls are thick, the fridge is stocked. You don't have to decide tonight, decide soon. Marco dropped me at the curb. The building's glass doors showed me a reflection I barely recognized. Blazer too big, eyes too tired. Robert was waiting. His tie was loose, always a storm warning. Sit, Olivia, we need to discuss Vertani. I sat, professional mask clicked into place like a seatbelt. What about it? I've heard from people who hear things. Feds are circling Versani. If we finish this audit, we might be subpoenaed. We were hired for a corporate cleanup, not a racketeering case. Isn't the whole point of forensic work to follow the money wherever it hides? Yes, when we're hired as forensic. This started as a plain audit, now it's a minefield. Partners want out. We return the fees, walk clean. What about me? If we bail, the Ollivans assume I found the smoking gun. They'll want the bullets too. Robert's forehead folded. How do you know that name? Because they've been in my rearview mirror for days, because they tried to bag me outside Target, because Versani's guy stopped it, I'm wearing his security detail like perfume. Jesus. He rubbed the thin spot on his scalp. You should have led with that. I'm leading with it now. Withdrawing makes me a loose end. Let me finish. 2 weeks. I deliver the report. We close the engagement quiet and neat. He exhaled through his teeth. 2 weeks, work from home, minimal contact, document every keystroke, anything smells off, we call the bureau. Deal. Back at my desk, the spreadsheets looked the same, but the numbers felt heavier. Cells full of fingerprints. Phone buzzed. Christopher. How did Robert take it? Like a man who just realized his insurance doesn't cover car bombs. I can call him. No, that's like spraying cologne on a grease fire. As you wish, offer stands when you're ready. I spent the afternoon ticking verified invoices, flagging the rest. If I only get 14 days, I can't chase every ghost, just catalog the ones that bite. 5 o'clock, my lower back throbbed. The baby decided ribs are punching bags. I packed up, rode the elevator to the 3rd level. Garage was almost empty. My car waited under a flickering tube light. Halfway there, footsteps, not the echo of my own heels, something heavier, deliberate. I turned. 3 men stepped out from between the parked cars. No uniforms, no Marco logo jackets, just blank faces and the kind of calm that says they've done this before. I froze with my key halfway to the lock. They fanned out, cutting the lane behind me, sealing the only way out. Not security, not Marco's team. The way they moved, no rush, no sound, sent ice down my spine. Christopher's warning replayed in my head on a loop. If O'Sullivan's people find you, you won't see the punch coming. They'd found me before I could drag air into my lungs. 4 shapes burst from behind the concrete column. Marco's crew, 4 on 3, and they didn't waste breath on warnings. It was fast, professional, a crack of bone, a grunt, someone hitting the deck hard, then silence. One of O'Sullivan's guys crawled off, blood smeared across his mouth. The other 2 dragged him toward the stairwell, footsteps echoing like dropped nails. A woman with cropped dark hair and eyes like calculator buttons walked up to me. Miss Grant, you hurt? No. What just happened? Attempted contact. They wanted to talk. We didn't give them the chance. She flicked her chin at a black SUV rolling to the curb. We're relocating you. Not safe here anymore. I wanted to argue home, bed, normal life, but my keys rattled like wind chimes in my fist. She opened the rear door. I climbed in. Marco sat opposite, elbows on knees. How did they find me? Surveillance loop on the building. They waited until you were alone. His jaw flexed. This escalation means something shifted. They're desperate or they got new intel. About the audit. About whatever they think you've uncovered. We took the long way, doubling back, ducking into alleys. By the time the SUV rolled through Christopher's gates, my shirt was stuck to my back. He stood under the porch light, arms folded, fury humming off him like heat. You hurt. I'm fine, your people got there first. This time. He angled his head toward the house. Inside, we need to map next moves. Anna already had the tea tray ready, china, honey, little silver spoons, discussing hitmen over Earl Grey. Surreal didn't cover it. Christopher waited until the door shut. You're staying here, non-negotiable now. They tried direct contact where witnesses were thin. Next time they'll bring bigger teeth. I can't just move in. Why not? Give me one reason that tops staying alive. Because I still own a life I'm trying to resume. Because dependency feels like quicksand. Because the longer I stay in your world, the harder it is to crawl out later. He leveled his gaze, and if you're dead when this ends, what life will you crawl back to? The words hit like a slammed trunk. Silence swallowed the room. I exhaled. The guest house, separate entrance. I keep working the audit remotely. 2 weeks, then I revisit the deal. Done. Marco will collect your things, anything special. Pregnancy tests, vitamins, maternity genes folded under the sweaters. I'll make a list. Day 1 in the guest house tasted like relief and failure mixed. Anna stocked the fridge, knocked, left trays on the table unless I waved her in. First afternoon, I missed the step between foyer and living room. The floor tilted. A hand clamped my arms, pulling me against a solid chest. Christopher, no laptop bag, no coat, just the curve of my stomach pressed to him for one heartbeat. His fingers tightened, barely then released. You okay? Yeah, thanks. He stepped back, face blank, conversation closed, but the imprint of that second lingered like static. He kept respectful distance after that. Still, we ended up sharing dinner more nights than I expected. I always picked the chair with the longest stretch of table. When I stood, I choreographed props, napkin, cardigan, camera bag, anything to break his line of sight. If he noticed the routine, he never said. Instead, he asked about books, food, the ridiculous hours auditors keep. Night 2, he mentioned my sister. You said you weren't close. Why? We fought 3 years ago. She wanted me in her wedding. Big audit dropped the same weekend. I chose work. And you never fixed it. She stopped answering. I stopped calling. I moved peas I didn't want. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'm cold. Or maybe you were building something solid after your world collapsed. People grieve different. She picked connection. You picked structure. Neither's wrong. I stared at him, this man who negotiated with criminals before breakfast. Ever think of reaching out? He asked. And say what? Sorry for choices I'd probably make again. You could say you miss her, that you'd like to understand each other, even if you never agree. The idea sat in my chest, unfamiliar but warm. 3 days later, the guest house felt smaller. The audit files blurred. I needed air. I slipped outside at dusk, hugging the shadows along the garage. The lawn smelled cut, clean footsteps. Christopher rounded the corner, phone to his ear. He lifted a hand. Stay quiet, finished the call. Anna said you skipped lunch. I was buried in spreadsheets. You're eating for 2 now. My heart thumped once hard. He didn't look at my midsection, kept his gaze on my eyes. I'm fine. You're running on caffeine and pride. A laugh escaped before I could trap it. Pot, meat, kettle. His mouth twitched. Walk with me. Grounds are secure. We moved along the path, dusk turning everything navy. Crickets sawed in the hedges. Marco got your things. Boxes are in the guest foyer. Thanks. Find everything you needed. I thought of the vitamins buried under socks. Yeah, all there. We stopped at the koi pond. Moonlight floated on the surface like spilled milk. I grew up in houses like this, he said. Big places, lots of staff. You learn silence early, then you learn power. Which did you prefer? Power's louder, silence sticks longer. I wrapped my arms around myself. He shrugged off his jacket, draped it over my shoulders without asking. Warm wool and something like cedar. Tell me about the numbers, he said. Which ones? The ones that scared O'Sullivan into sending men after you. I inhaled. Offshore accounts, shell companies buying shares in a shipping line you own. Money pings through Dublin, then vanishes into a trust in the Caymans. If I trace the signatures, I can prove tax evasion, maybe worse. He was quiet so long I thought he'd walked off inside his head. Then, finish the audit, I'll keep you breathing. The promise should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like a gate closing. Night 5, I woke to thunder or maybe gunfire. I sat straight up, heart in my mouth. Rain lashed the windows. I pulled on sweatshirt, crept to the main house. Lights blazed in the kitchen. Christopher stood at the island, shirt sleeves rolled, gun within reach next to a coffee mug. Just thunder, he said without turning. Go back to bed. I poured water, hands shaking. Do you ever sleep? Not when the storm feels off. I leaned on the counter opposite him. Tell me something normal, I said. Favorite cereal, first pet, anything. He considered. Golden Grams, dog named Radar who could open doors. Radar. Kid logic, he barked at planes. I laughed again, softer. He watched me like the answer mattered. Lightning cracked. In the flash, I saw the exhaustion carved under his eyes. You're not the villain in my story, I said before thinking better. His brow lifted. Give it time. Anna appeared, robe cinched. Power's out on the east wing, generators kicking. Christopher nodded. Get some rest, Anna. To May. You should too. I didn't move, neither did he. Finally, I pushed off the counter. Night, Christopher. Good night, Layla. My name and his voice stopped me at the doorway. I looked back. Thank you, I said, for the jacket, for the serial confession, for keeping me breathing. He gave a small nod, eyes dark, unreadable. I walked to the guest house through rain that smelled like iron. Behind me, the kitchen light stayed on long after thunder faded. I was giving relationship advice. Me, the woman who'd ghosted her own sister and was hiding a pregnancy behind gated walls. You're more insightful than I expected, he said. I just shrugged. People are rarely what we expect them to be. That night I lay in the guest house bed, sheets soft from too many washings. The baby rolled slow, deliberate like it was turning a page. I let myself picture Haley. She'd be an aunt in about 6 weeks and didn't even know the kid existed. Would she smile? Would she yell? Both, probably. My thumb hovered over her contact. I shoved the phone under the pillow. Too many complications, too many lies to untangle. After the Alivans were handled, after I pushed this baby out and figured somewhere safe to land, maybe then I'd dial. Maybe then I'd risk hearing her hang up. The audit ate my days. I worked from the little desk overlooking the orchard, camera off, headset on. Twice a week Robert appeared on screen, tie crooked, asking for numbers. I fed him spreadsheets, legitimate wire transfers, clean invoices, and the other stuff, the shell company ghosts that refused to stay buried. Pattern was simple once you saw it. Christopher's dad had laundered cash through art, sculpture, anything you could hang on a wall or hide in a crate. 2 years ago the volume dropped like someone had turned a faucet half closed. Christopher wasn't lying, he really was shrinking the dirty side. Question was whether the faucet would close all the way before someone, Alivans, feds, whoever, smashed the pipes. Day 6, prenatal check, same distant clinic, same bleach smell. Marco parked the SUV where he could watch the lot. I waddled in alone. Dr. Whitfield found the heartbeat first try. 32 weeks, everything's on track. She peeled off gloves, but your BP's climbing. Stress can yank that kid out early. You need rest, support, someone to bring you ice chips at 2 a.m. I stared at the ceiling tiles, support systems. I had a duffel bag and a burner phone. I'm working on it, I said, working on surviving. Counted, right? Marco drove back through the gates. A silver sedan idled near the fountain. Christopher stood beside it, sleeves rolled, talking to a man in a suit that cost more than my car. Legal counsel, Marco muttered. Mr. Virginia's been trading messages with the Alivans. About what? Territory, how to end a war without more bodies. An hour later Christopher knocked. Can we talk? He looked like he hadn't slept since last year. Inside, he paced the rug. Negotiations stalled. They want my shipping lanes, 10% off the top, and a seat at every board table. I say no, bullets start flying again, including at you. I shifted on the couch, belly between us like a referee. So what are you going to do? He stopped. Something permanent. But permanent has a price. I heard the gun he wasn't mentioning. Don't torch the future you're building just to win yesterday's argument. He half smiled, exhausted. They're not yesterday, they're eternal. Then move. The words jumped out. Take the legit wine business, the Napa suppliers, the actual vineyards. Relocate. Let the Alivans have this zip code. He blinked like I'd smacked him. That isn't insane. California's far enough. Pay exit tax, wave goodbye, breathe. Silence stretched. You've got good instincts, he said. Ever think of consulting? Numbers don't shoot at me. Before I could dodge further, my phone rang. Robert, jittery. FBI wants you tomorrow, 9 a.m. field office. Something in your report sparked their case. My stomach fell through the floor. Christopher nodded, calm as stone. Tell them the truth. You found dirt, you wrote it down, you're just the accountant. And if they want me on a stand? Then you swear on the Bible and point at the columns. I'll pay the fines, I'm not asking you to lie. He left, door clicked, room felt bigger, baby kicked once like punctuation. I sat there listening to the orchard wind rattling the panes, wondering how many more secrets could fit in one body before it split. You sound very confident about that because I've been working with my attorneys for 2 years to ensure compliance. My father's old operations are being dissolved correctly. All taxes and fees paid retroactively. It's expensive and complicated, but it's legal. He stood, preparing to leave, answered the FBI's questions honestly. I have nothing to hide from them. After he left, I sat alone in the guest house, one hand resting on my belly where the baby was moving. Tomorrow I'd be questioned by federal investigators about financial crimes while hiding a pregnancy that was becoming impossible to conceal under professional clothing. The secret was too big now, the lies too complicated. Something was going to break and I had no idea how to prevent it. The FBI interview never happened. At 8:30 the next morning, I was in the guest house preparing to leave when violent cramping doubled me over. Not Braxton Hicks. Something worse, something deeper that radiated from my lower back and wrapped around my abdomen with relentless intensity. I tried to breathe through it, telling myself it would pass. But 15 minutes later, another wave hit stronger than the first. When I stood, fluid soaked through my clothes, my water had broken. Panic replaced all rational thought. I was 32 weeks pregnant, 6 weeks early. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. I wasn't ready. I had no hospital bag packed, no plan in place, no story prepared for how I'd explain any of this. I managed to reach my phone, calling the only number that made sense. Christopher answered on the second ring. I need help. My voice came out strained. Something's wrong. He was at my door within 2 minutes, taking in my condition with immediate assessment. How long have you been having contractions? 20 minutes, my water broke. His expression shifted from concern to focused action. We're going to the hospital now. I can't, people will know, the FBI interview, my job, everything will fall apart. None of that matters if you're having a medical emergency. He was already calling someone on his phone. Marco, bring the car to the guest house. Medical emergency, we're going to St. Catherine's. Christopher, you don't understand. I understand that you're in labor weeks early and need immediate medical attention. He ended the call and crouched beside where I sat on the couch. Whatever you've been hiding, whatever complications you're worried about, they're secondary to your health right now. Another contraction hit and I couldn't hold back a cry of pain. Christopher's hand found mine, his grip steady. I'm 32 weeks pregnant, I gasped out. I've been hiding it for months from everyone. The baby isn't yours, it's from a stranger I met at a conference. I was planning to disappear before anyone found out. He didn't look shocked, instead, something like understanding crossed his features. I know, I figured it out the week you moved into the guest house, he said quietly. You almost fell in the foyer, remember? I caught you and for a second there was nothing between us. No coat, no table, no carefully placed bag, just you. Another contraction ripped through me. I squeezed his hand, breath shaking. So you guessed. I stopped guessing when I saw the prenatal vitamins in your bathroom and the appointments on your billing statements, he went on, his voice steady, even as mine frayed. Your trash, the pharmacy receipts, the way you've been hiding your body. I'm observant, Olivia, I put it together. The betrayal of his silence warred with the panic clawing up my throat. You knew and didn't say anything. His grip tightened around my fingers, not enough to hurt, just enough to anchor. Because you were already terrified. He said you were waiting for the floor to drop out from under you every time the phone rang, cornering you about something this big when you didn't feel safe here yet would have been pressure, not protection. Another contraction built hot and sharp. Tears pricked my eyes, half from pain, half from something dangerously close to relief. So you just watched, I managed. I waited, he corrected. I made sure no one got near you. I thought that when you were ready you'd tell me, and if you didn't, his jaw set, I'd still keep you alive. His gaze flicked to the door. Right now, the only thing that matters is getting you and the baby to a hospital. The drive to St. Catherine's Hospital took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Contractions came every 8 minutes, each one stealing my breath. Marco drove with practiced efficiency while Christopher sat beside me in the back seat, his hand never leaving mine. My doctor is at a clinic across town, I managed between contractions. Dr. Sarah Whitfield. We'll have her paged once you're admitted, Christopher's voice was calm, grounding. Focus on breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth. The emergency entrance at St. Catherine's was designed for efficiency. A wheelchair appeared immediately, and I was rushed through triage while Christopher handled paperwork with an authority that suggested he'd done this before. A nurse in navy scrubs checked my vitals while asking rapid questions. How far along are you? 32 weeks. Any complications during pregnancy? High blood pressure, gestational diabetes. Blood pressure was slightly elevated at my last appointment, stress-related. She made notes, then looked up at Christopher. Are you the father? No, I said before he could answer. He's a friend. The father's not in the picture, Christopher added smoothly. I'm here as her support person. Within 20 minutes, I was in a private room being examined by an obstetrician I'd never met. Dr. Patricia Williams was in her 50s, efficient and reassuring. Your cervix is dilating, but slowly. The baby's heart rate is strong, which is good. We're going to try to slow or stop the labor with medication. Give you steroid shots to help develop the baby's lungs in case we can't stop it. 32 weeks is early, but with proper care, outcomes are generally positive. The baby will be okay. Premature babies face challenges, but we have an excellent NICU here. Let's focus on trying to keep this pregnancy going a few more weeks if possible. The next 6 hours blurred together, medication through an IV, monitoring equipment tracking every contraction, nurses checking constantly. Christopher remained throughout, sitting in the chair beside my bed, making calls to postpone meetings and arrange for my belongings to be brought from the guest house. You should go, I told him during a quiet moment. You have the FBI situation to handle, your business negotiations. Marco's handling the FBI, they've agreed to reschedule your interview. As for the business, nothing is more important than making sure you're okay. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully, because in the past months of working together, I've come to care what happens to you. Because you deserve to have someone here who gives a damn whether you're alone and scared, and because maybe I'm tired of being the person who only knows how to operate in crisis mode. Maybe I want to be someone who can just be present for another human being without calculation or ulterior motive. The honesty in his voice undid something in me. I should have told you about the pregnancy, about why I was really so afraid of the O'Sullivan situation. You told me when you were ready, that's what matters. Around 4:00 in the afternoon, the contractions began to slow. The medication was working. Dr. Williams returned with cautiously optimistic news. The labor appears to be stopping. We'll keep you overnight for observation, continue the steroid treatments, and monitor closely. If you can make it another few days without active labor, we'll reassess. Ideally, we'd like to get you to 34 weeks minimum. What do I need to do? Complete bed rest, no stress, no physical exertion. You'll need someone monitoring you constantly in case labor restarts suddenly. She'll stay at my property, Christopher said. Private nursing care, whatever equipment or monitoring is needed, I'll arrange everything. Dr. Williams looked between us. That's very generous. Miss Grant, are you comfortable with this arrangement? I thought about my alternatives, returning to my apartment alone with O'Sullivan's people still searching for me, trying to manage bed rest while maintaining my job and keeping the pregnancy secret, the FBI interview that would eventually happen, all of it impossible to navigate without support. Yes, I said, I'm comfortable with it. After Dr. Williams left, I turned to Christopher. This is going to complicate everything, your negotiations, the audit, the whole situation. The situation was already complicated, this just adds different variables. He stood, moving to the window. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're not facing this alone anymore. Even though the baby isn't yours, even though I lied for months. The baby being mine or not is irrelevant to whether you deserve support and protection. As for the lying, you did what you felt necessary to survive. I understand survival choices better than most people. That evening, Christopher left briefly to handle business while I ate bland hospital food and tried to process everything. The secret was out, at least to him. Soon it would spread further. Medical records, insurance claims. Eventually, everyone would know. My phone had 17 missed calls, the FBI, Robert, even a few numbers I didn't recognize. I couldn't deal with any of it. Around 8, Christopher returned with Anna, who carried an overnight bag she'd packed from the guest house. I brought comfortable clothes and your laptop, Anna said kindly, and some books I thought you might like. Hospital stays are terribly boring. Thank you. You didn't have to come all this way. Nonsense, we take care of our own. She patted my hand gently before leaving. Our own, I asked Christopher after she'd gone. Anna considers anyone staying at the property under her care. She's fiercely protective of people she decides to adopt. That night, Christopher slept in the chair beside my bed, despite my protest that he should go home. Every few hours, nurses came to check my vitals and the baby's heartbeat. Each time he'd wake, watch the monitoring carefully, then settle back once assured everything was stable. In the quiet darkness between checks, I finally let myself cry. For the months of carrying this secret alone. For the fear that I'd fail at the one thing I absolutely couldn't afford to fail at, keeping this baby safe. For the relief of having someone present who actually seemed to care beyond obligation. Christopher heard the quiet sobs and moved from the chair to sit carefully on the edge of the bed. He didn't offer empty platitudes or tell me everything would be fine. He just sat there, solid and present, until the crying stopped and exhaustion pulled me into sleep. The next morning, Dr. Williams cleared me for discharge with strict instructions. Complete bed rest, follow-up appointments twice weekly, immediate return to the hospital if contractions resumed. Christopher had already arranged for a private nurse to stay at the property and medical equipment to be delivered. You've thought of everything, I said as we prepared to leave. I'm good at logistics, it's one of my more useful skills. During the drive back to the property, I finally checked my messages. Robert had called 4 times, increasingly worried. The FBI had rescheduled my interview for next week, and there was one message from a number I hadn't seen in 3 years. Haley, Olivia, it's me. I heard through a mutual friend that you were in the hospital. Are you okay? Please call me back. I know we haven't talked, but I've been thinking about you. I want to fix this between us, please. I stared at the message, emotions swirling. My sister had somehow heard about the hospital visit, which meant other people knew too. The secret was unraveling faster than I'd anticipated. Bad news? Christopher asked. He caught my face in the doorway light. My sister. I folded the email like it might bite. Haven't spoken in 3 years. She wants to reconnect. That's not necessarily bad. It is when I don't know how to explain any of this to her. My voice cracked. Last time we talked, she called me cold, selfish, said I picked spreadsheets over birthdays, audits over anniversaries, and now, I gestured at the swell under my sweater, I'm having a baby alone, hiding it from everyone, working for a man tied to organized crime while his rivals circle like sharks. He glanced at me, then back at the dark window. Maybe she'd understand better than you think. People change in 3 years, maybe both of you have. The thought of Haley knowing, really knowing, felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Family, real family, someone who could ask, "How was your day?" and not flinch at the answer. Terrifying, tempting, a problem for tomorrow. Right now I had one job: keep this pregnancy stable 2 more weeks, just 2. The FBI, the audit, the O'Sullivans, even the sister-shaped hole in my chest, everything else could wait. 2 days passed in slow motion. I stayed flat in the guest room bed while Patricia, the nurse, took my vitals every 4 hours. No contractions, baby's heartbeat galloping steady. Dr. Williams called each morning, voice careful, hopeful. Christopher knocked before every entrance, eyes respectful, like he hadn't held my hand while I cried through a contraction that felt like my spine snapping. Third evening he showed up with his laptop clutched against his chest, determined look. "We need to talk about what happens next." I pulled the blanket higher. "Shoot." FBI interview in 4 days, O'Sullivan negotiations stalled, your medical bills climbing. He sat, opened the laptop. "I have a proposal, clear terms, everyone wins." "Terms?" I repeated. "First, finish the audit, document everything, legit operations, questionable transactions, all of it. Then tell me if you think it's criminal or just messy bookkeeping we're fixing." "You want my opinion in the report." "Standard practice. Second, talk to the FBI, tell the truth but emphasize cooperation, emphasize transition, context matters." I snorted, "Spin." "Truth with context. There's a difference between a crook doubling down and an air cleaning house." "And my end." "Full medical coverage, private doctors, no paper trails, no insurance companies selling your data, considerate hazard pay." "That feels like charity." "Call it compensation for the stress my world dumped on yours." He hesitated. "There's more." I lifted an eyebrow, hit me. "I'm moving operations to California within 2 months. O'Sullivans keep the city, I keep my life, which leaves the question, what happens to you?" My pulse thumped in my ears. "I'm listening." "Come with me, not as an employee, consultant, help me build something clean. You're good at spotting rot, I need someone I trust." "You barely know me." "I know you risked your career to keep the audit honest. I know you haven't asked for sympathy once while carrying a miracle and a target on your back. I know you're sharp, stubborn, and allergic to bullshit. Exactly the kind of partner I need if I'm serious about legitimacy." Partner, the word landed warm and dangerous. "And the baby?" "Medical care continues, childcare when you're working, maternity leave that actually sticks, whatever you need to be both mom and professional." I studied his face, too generous, too neat. "Why?" A long breath. "Because you've become someone I care about. Because I'm tired of shadows and moral math. You make me want to be better than I've been. That's a lot to lay on one person, so," he lifted both hands. "Tell me what you want, real terms, your move." I swallowed. I'd spent months surviving hour to hour. Needs felt like foreign currency. "Honesty," I said. "No more surprises. If I'm in, I want full visibility on every skeleton." "Done." "Autonomy, real choice, where I live, how I work, how I raise my kid. Support, not strings." "Reasonable." "And one more thing." I pressed a palm to my belly, felt the flutter of a tiny heel. "If I take this leap, you back me up when I screw up. No knives in the dark, no boardroom exile. We call it partnership, we treat it like partnership." His eyes softened. "Deal." We sat in the hush, 2 conspirators rewriting futures neither of us had imagined last winter. Outside, wind rattled the maple leaves against glass. Inside, a clock ticked, a laptop hummed, and a child who didn't yet know its last name kept time with a steady, hopeful heart. I stared at the ceiling fan. It turned slow, like it couldn't decide if it was worth the effort. "Anything else?" Christopher asked. I swallowed. My throat tasted like metal. "I want help getting my sister back. I don't know how to cross that canyon by myself." He nodded once. "I can set it up." "There's more." I shifted, the weight in my belly pressing on every nerve. "I need to know what you actually feel, not the polite version. The way you watch me when you think I'm asleep says this stopped being a job a while ago." He'd been leaning forward, elbows on knees. Now he eased back, fingers steepled under his chin. Quiet so long the fridge in the kitchen clicked on. "You're right," he said. "It's not professional anymore. I've got feelings, the inconvenient kind. But I'm not going to corner you while you're flat on your back, dodging contractions and criminals." I let out a shaky laugh, very measured. "I'm trying not to be the guy who takes advantage of the perfect storm." Lamplight painted gold across the hollows under his eyes. The mask was slipping. I could see the tired man underneath. "What if I told you I feel it too?" I asked. that I've cataloged every glance, every time your hand accidentally brushes mine, and I'm sure it's not just gratitude. His jaw tightened. I'd ask if you can separate real attraction from the fact I'm the only raft in your hurricane. I've had 7.5 months of insomnia to sort that out. I know the difference. Something in his face softened, then closed again. Then we table it, deliver the baby, get you stable. After that, if the spark's still there, we'll strike it when you're not under siege. Frustratingly reasonable, I muttered. Before he could answer, my phone rang. Haley again. I'd let her calls rot for 3 days. Pick up, he said. Start gluing what you can. I hit the button. Hales. Liv, thank God, her voice cracked. Mom's friend's daughter works at St. Catherine's. She saw your name. Are you okay? I'm okay now. Early labor, but they stopped it. I'm on bed rest. Silence. Then, you're pregnant and you didn't tell me. I'm going to be an aunt and I find out through hospital gossip. I didn't tell anyone. Where's the father? Conference hookup, nameless. I plan to solo it. Olivia, you can't solo a baby. I'm coming. Give me the address. It's 2 hours. I'm not asking. I looked at Christopher. He mouthed, Marco will drive. I passed the info. Haley agreed to let Marco pick her up. We hung up. Tears slipped hot into my ears. That went better than I pictured, I whispered. People surprise you, he said, sometimes in the good direction. 2 hours later, headlights washed the window, footsteps on hardwood. Haley stepped into the room, same blonde, same green eyes, just shorter, softer. She hurried to the bed, hugged me like I was glass. You look terrible, she said, and it sounded like love. Stress diet, highly effective. She took the chair Christopher had left warm. Start talking, don't stop until I know everything. So I spilled conference, positive test, hiding, audit those Sullivans, Christopher. She listened without blinking. When I finished, she exhaled like she'd been underwater. You always complicate the uncomplicated, she said. You could have called 8 months ago. I was hurt. You said I picked spreadsheets over family. I was mad doesn't mean I'd abandon you. I didn't know how to ask. I'm here now, not leaving till we sort this. Christopher appeared with Anna, who carried a tray of soup that smelled like time and safety. Haley squeezed my hand. The fan kept turning, but suddenly it looked like it had decided the effort was worth it after all. The 4 of us sat in the guest house living room, me wedged into the corner of the couch. Haley parked on the ottoman like a prosecutor. She fired questions at Christopher, why his import company, how he planned to keep me alive, what legitimate even meant to a man whose last name still smelled of old money and older blood. He answered everyone, no twitch of irritation. Just calm, steady sentences that admitted the mess he'd inherited and the promises he'd made to clean it. Finally, Haley twisted toward me. Do you trust him? Yes. The word came out before I could dress it up, surprising only because it was true. And you want to go to California, work with him, build something there. I think so. She exhaled through her teeth. If you get through that FBI interview without selling your soul or his, I'll back you. But I'll fly in whenever I want, and if anything feels off, you tell me. Immediately. It was more than I'd dared hope for. Family rebuilt on honesty instead of secrets that rotted the floorboards. That night, after I tucked Haley into the main house guest room, Christopher came back one last time. Thank you, I said, for tonight, for Haley, for all of it. He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. You deserve to have family present, everyone does. Interviews in 2 days. My pulse flickered. You ready for whatever I tell them? I've been ready for months. His voice stayed low. Tell them the truth, Olivia. Whatever happens, we handle it together. The certainty in those last 4 words felt like a hand under my ribs, holding my heart steady. 2 mornings later, I sat at the desk in his study, webcam glowing. Special Agent Reeves appeared first, sharp eyes, tidy blouse, the kind of woman who kept her coffee black and her questions blacker. Agent Park beside her, younger, quiet, taking notes like a court stenographer with a badge. Miss Grant, thanks for making time, given your condition. Condition, nice way of saying pregnant, exhausted, and held together by caffeine-free tea and nerves. We understand you've been auditing Christopher Versani's books for months. I have. Describe what you found. My attorney sat just off screen, ready to yank the cord if I veered. I'd rehearsed every syllable. Mr. Versani's core operations are legal, Italian wines, furniture, art, but the older ledgers show red flags, purchases priced way above market, cash routed through shell companies in Cyprus and the Caymans, classic wash cycle. Previous involvement, Reeves asked, pen poised. concentrated before he took control 3 years ago. Since then, the suspicious wires shrink every quarter. He's dismantling the machinery his father built. Has he cooperated? Full access, no off-limits files, no vanishing documents. He's transparent to the point of reckless. Reeves scratched a note. You're living on one of his properties. Doesn't that color your objectivity? I'm there because the O'Sullivans turned my apartment into a hunting blind. They wanted my files and didn't care if they had to kidnap me to get them. Versani provided security as a direct result of dangers created by my work. Agent Park looked up. Tell us about the O'Sullivans. I laid it out: territorial feud, black SUV tailing me, the parking garage confrontation that still echoed in my nightmares. Reeves moved on. Any current criminal activity you've seen? No, present-day books look clean. He's operating inside the lines. But you found evidence of past money laundering. Financial irregularities, yes, they're being dissolved with legal oversight. 2 hours of that, every invoice, every wire, every timestamp. I told the truth, but I gave context the way Christopher asked. No punches pulled, no extra knife twists either. When the screen went dark, my attorney closed his folder. You did well, truthful, not suicidal. Exactly what we needed. Christopher stepped in, face unreadable. Thank you for being fair. I told the truth, you've been straight with me. What happens now? I finish the report, you pack for California, we wait to see if the Bureau decides to bite. That afternoon I typed the last paragraph of the audit, 73 pages, footnotes thick as weeds. I sent it to Robert, he forwarded it to the partners within minutes. This is excellent, Olivia, fair, thorough, well documented. Given the circumstances, take extended medical leave for the pregnancy. We'll revisit employment afterward. Translation: we want distance from the fallout. Acceptable, I said, I'll file today. 2 days later, Christopher's phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Negotiations with the O'Sullivans had closed. He surrendered city territory, paid exit fees that could fund a hospital wing, and agreed to be gone inside 60 days. Surveillance on me evaporated overnight. Marco delivered the news like a doctor announcing remission. It's over, threat level minimal. That evening, Christopher found me on the back terrace, wind whipping the olive trees into whispers. It's done, he said. Conflict, danger, all of it, cost me plenty, but territory's just geography. I pressed a hand to the small swell under my sweater. And what about us? He didn't answer with words, just slipped his coat over my shoulders and stood there while the sky went midnight blue. I kept what matters, he said, the businesses, my people, and the right to breathe without a war starting every Monday. He paused. California has sun, he added. Seems useful when you'll have a newborn screaming at dawn. You're assuming I'm coming with you, I said. I'm hoping, he answered, but I'll understand if you choose differently. I'd been turning that choice over for days. California smelled like eucalyptus and blank pages. No ghosts in the closets. No audit files labeled confidential and smelling like panic. Working with Christopher meant money that didn't vanish overnight, problems that needed solving, not burying, but it also meant tying my life to his, a knot I couldn't unpick with a scalpel. The decision stopped being abstract at 34 weeks exactly. My labor slammed in like a train at 2:00 a.m. Christopher drove. I cursed the potholes between contractions. Haley met us at St. Catherine's, still wearing the sweater she'd grabbed from the back of her chair. By sunrise, I was holding Clara, 5 pounds 3 ounces of furious, lungs built for opera. She was small, but the monitors sang steady. Steroids had done their job. She's perfect, Haley whispered, tears everywhere, absolutely perfect. Christopher hung back, hands in pockets. I crooked a finger. He stepped closer like the floor might break. Would you like to hold her? Are you sure? I'm sure. He took her like he'd done it before, head cradled, spine supported. She blinked once, yawned, and melted against his chest. Hello, Clara, he said. Welcome to the world. You're going to have an interesting life, she answered with a burp, momentous enough for her. The next days blurred. Clara stayed for monitoring. I lived in the vinyl recliner beside her isolate, learning latch, swaddle, the difference between hungry cry and lonely cry. Christopher and Haley rotated like satellites, sandwiches, clean shirts, phone calls I couldn't manage. Haley took leave from teaching. Sat with me through the 3 a.m. feeds. I'm sorry I wasn't there before, she said while Clara slept. I let pride keep me away when you needed family. I chose career over being your maid of honor. We were both right, both wrong. Can we do better? Yes, I said. Definitely yes. 1 week later, Dr. Williams signed the discharge papers. Clara had chunked up to 5'8". I was exhausted, stitched, and weirdly proud of both of us. Christopher appeared with a car seat already clicked in. Trunk crammed with boxes. Some things, he muttered. Some things, this is enough for triplets. I wanted you to have everything you needed. Back at the property, Anna had hijacked a sunny room. Yellow walls, organic cotton zoo animals, a rocking chair positioned to watch the oak sway. This is too much, I protested. It's exactly right, she said. Every baby deserves a proper welcome. That night Clara slept in the bassinet beside the guest room bed. I finally had silence wide enough to think. 3 months ago, I'd been hiding a pregnancy in a war zone audit. Now I was somebody's mom, family support. A man downstairs who looked at me like I was both problem and solution. Soft knock, come in. Christopher eased the door open. How are you managing? Terrified, exhausted, no clue what I'm doing, but she's breathing, so we win. He sat by the bassinet, elbows on knees. I meant what I said about California. Offer still stands. Consulting, medical care, help with her. I want you there, Olivia. Not just for work, I'm invested in you, in Clara. You barely know her. I know she's stubborn, loud when hungry, and gives that same competence scan you do. That's already enough. I laughed. Clara snorted but stayed asleep. What about romantically? You said we'd revisit when I was stable. Is this stable? Probably as stable as my life gets. He moved to the edge of the bed, careful not to shake the mattress. Then here's what I want. I want to build something real, not crisis, not necessity. Connection, I want to watch her grow, not as her father, just someone who cares. I want to wake up knowing the person I'm building a business and a life with is someone I admire, trust, and love. Love, I'm in love with you, Olivia, somewhere between your refusal to fudge numbers and the way you kept standing when anyone else would have folded. I'm not asking you to love me back right now, I'm just telling you where I stand. I reached for his hand. Fingers rough, warm, I do love you. It's idiotic and terrifying and makes zero sense, but I do. He leaned in, kissed me soft like I might shatter. So California, he asked against my hair. California, I said, fresh start, legitimate business, partnership in every sense, let's build something worth having. 6 months crawled by on the calendar, but inside my chest it felt like 6 minutes and 6 years at once. I stood in the living room of a house that still smelled faintly of cedar and new paint, watching Christopher and Haley wrestle with a tiny pink toy kitchen. It came with plastic eggs, a fake microwave, and instructions written by someone who clearly hated humanity. Clara was sprawled on her playmat, too small to reach the stove, but she eyeballed it like she already owned the place. She grunted, rolled, snatched a rubber carrot, and tried to eat it. Standard operating procedure for a kid who'd arrived 8 weeks early and hadn't stopped sprinting since. My sister flew in once a month now, armed with anti-energy and enough luggage to stock a small daycare. She'd land, hug me so hard my spine cracked, then spend 72 hours narrating every single facial expression Clara made. I'd pretend to be annoyed, but I'd already memorized the sound of their combined laughter. The consulting gig kept my brain busy. Spreadsheet detox for companies that used to hide money in shell games. Christopher was my biggest client. Funny how the guy who once laundered cash through 3 countries now asked me to triple-check every invoice for honesty. We rebuilt his import business from the ground up, transparent windows everywhere, sunlight on every number. 3 months ago, the FBI closed the file. Insufficient evidence of ongoing criminal activity. That's the bureaucratic way of saying, we don't believe you're still dirty, but we'll keep the dust bunny of suspicion in the corner just in case. Christopher read the letter twice, folded it into a paper airplane, and sailed it into the trash. Then he went to change Clara's diaper like nothing had happened. She was thriving, that's the pediatrician's word, not mine. Thriving, she chunked up, her hair curling into soft black spirals, her eyes the exact shade of espresso I used to mainline during tax season. Every milestone got a checkmark, sometimes early, premature, my foot. The kid was running a con on the growth chart, footsteps. Christopher walked in carrying 2 mugs, one black coffee for him, one oat milk lukewarm thing for me. He leaned down, kissed me quick, tasted like bitterness and mint toothpaste. Clara squealed, lunged, and latched onto his watch like a tiny raccoon with status symbol hunger. Your daughter has expensive taste, he said, prying stainless steel from her sticky fingers. Our daughter, I corrected. I didn't even think about it. The words just landed, solid, like they'd been waiting on the runway for clearance. You've been more of a parent than her biological father ever was or will be. He went still, coffee halfway to his lips. Then our daughter definitely has expensive taste, he said, voice rough around the edges. Haley looked up from the instruction manual, eyes narrowed behind safety-grade reading glasses. Are you two ever going to make this official? Because Clara deserves to be flower girl at a wedding eventually. The room went quiet except for the soft clack of plastic screws hitting hardwood. Christopher and I locked eyes. Eventually, we said together. The word felt flimsy, like it might tear if you held it too tight. Eventually sounded less important than now, and now was already happening in the way his hand found the small of my back, in the way Clara crawled over my shoes like I was home base. I used to live in shadows. Numbers were safe, people weren't. Every secret I carried had a deadbolt and a burglar alarm. Then came a man with a criminal past and a baby with a warrior cry, and suddenly my fortress looked more like a prison. Trust is harder than any audit. Love is messy, full of footnotes and amendments. But watching Christopher cross his eyes until Clara shrieked with laughter, seeing Haley triumphantly snap the last cabinet into place, I got it. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, teething tariffs, maybe another knock from the feds. We'll face them together, 3 adults and 1 dictator in diapers. Numbers taught me patterns and truth. People taught me love and family. And Clara, tiny, determined, early bird Clara, taught me that sometimes the best things in life come when every careful plan you ever sketched detonates into confetti. Ever dealt with toxic family? Comment and subscribe.